Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, I really want to share one of my biggest mistakes. And the reason why I want to share my mistakes is because no one is perfect, right? We all make mistakes and it is okay to make mistakes. I am better with my finances simply because I have made mistakes and I now understand how not to make those same mistakes again, how to look out for tactics that are out there that I can fall for and become a victim to because there is information out there for everyone. And with this particular mistake, there was information out there. There was information on the web, but I still went out there, even though I was prepared, even though I read all the information, I did my research, I still went out there and I made a mistake. And I'm going to share why exactly that happened. But before I share what the mistake was and why that happened, I'm going to give you all a little bit of a backstory so that you can understand how I ended up making that decision. And there was one thing, one key emotion that I was experiencing at that time, which is why I shouldn't have made that decision. And after I share what the mistake was, I'm going to share with you all how I was able to overcome it. Because there are probably, well, not probably, but there are a lot of people out there who are going through the same thing that I went through. And if this video can help just one person, I want to make sure that that one person has the opportunity to see this video and to learn from it. So let me give you guys a little bit of backstory as to how I ended up making this big mistake. You see, I was in my last year of college and I was still driving my first car, and that's a hint to you all right there. So this car was an old luxury car, and I had it for about 5 years at that point. I had it for 4 years, almost 5 years, and it was giving me problems throughout the entire time that I had that car. Every few months, something had to be replaced, and since it was an older luxury car, parts were very expensive and the labor was expensive as well. So it's a car that I should not have had as a college student, but I love the car. My dad bought it for me, etc. Yeah, I got what I needed to learn a lesson from. But anyway, I began, you know what, this car is having problems. So I started to do a search online to look for a new car, and not a brand new car, but a car to replace this old car. And I found the blue Toyota Camry that I wanted. The price was right online. So before going into the dealership, I did my research to find out the tactics and things that I should be looking out for before going into the dealership. And I read everything and I still did not do everything that my research told me to do. I don't know why, but I was well informed and I still made this big mistake. And I'll tell you, the very first mistake I made was that I went to the dealership by myself. And because I went to the dealership by myself, I made another mistake immediately. Now, my car was having a problem, and the problem that it had was that the battery was being drained of its charge every time I drove the car and turned it off, and then I would not be able to start it again right away. I knew that, and it took hours for the battery to regain its charge again, and it was a pretty new battery that was in the car. So I still went down to the dealership by myself, and since I did that, that was mistake number two. I couldn't walk away. I was trapped there because once I got there, I was not able to start my car again. And I knew that this would happen. So I get to the dealership, and of course, my car doesn't start again. But anyway, we go for a test drive because I made an appointment and everything. We go for a test drive in the blue Camry. And of course, it checked all of my boxes, everything that I was looking for. And I liked the car. It was quiet, it was smooth, it was adequate, it was good enough for me. It was exactly what I needed as a college student. And I chose the Camry because my mom had a Camry and she had no problems with her car up to that point, and her car was already 12 years old. So I'm like, I'm going to get something that's going to last me a long time. So, because I'm tired of having to fix the car. Go on a test drive, and as we get back and go into the dealership to begin sitting down and negotiating, they go ahead, they run my credit and everything and get all of the information for my income. And well, this was something that my research revealed. You needed pretty good income to be able to qualify for a loan. But I still went to the dealership anyway, and I went by myself. At that point in time, as a college student, again, I was mainly living off of my scholarship refunds, which wasn't a lot, to be perfectly honest. My expenses weren't really high at that time because I didn't have rent to pay, etc., or an electric bill. My parents paid it for me at that point in my life. At least my mom paid it for me at that point in my life. And I thought, well, I do have a job. They're like, do you have a job? I'm like, yes. I'm like, well, great. You should be able to get a loan. Yeah, except I only worked 1 day per week at that point. And it was an entry level job making $9 an hour. 1 day a week, a maximum of 10 hours, $90 per week minus taxes, which means that I was getting around 80 something, 80 bucks per week. So less than 80, somewhere around there. And I went to the dealership to try to qualify for a loan. So anyway, they run my credit and they submit the credit reports to the banks. And of course, needless to say, I began getting rejected for loans from major banks, banks like Chase and Bank of America, etc. And I'm sitting in the dealership and negotiating that deal took so long. I don't know why it took so long. I guess it broke me down a little bit emotionally. Again, I went by myself. And they were having a lot of trouble trying to get me approved because I had no income. So at some point during the visit, the salesman comes to me and he asks, are you okay with changing the car? Because we are having a hard time getting you approved. So, like, if you get a newer car, because that car that I was looking at was 3 years old and they had something else that was 2 years old, if you get a newer car, we'll be able to help you out with getting a loan at a lower interest rate. But before I go into that, the interest rate, the payment that they came back to me with for the Camry was, I believe it was somewhere around $400 and $500 a month. 400 something, 402, I believe it was for like 72 months on a 3-year-old car. It was ridiculous. So I'm like, there is no way I'm doing that. And this is where I made another mistake. And I read about this. I started negotiating via monthly payments. Once they presented me with those monthly payments, I was shocked and I had no idea what else to do. I did ask what was the interest rate, but that still got thrown on the back burner because they didn't provide me with the interest rate right away. I'm like, why is the payment so high? What is the interest rate? And the interest rate was like 22%. Yes, crazy. So anyway, I agree. I'm like, okay, fine. I just need a car. Let's just switch the car, whatever. I don't care. So they were thinking about putting me in a Corolla, and well, they had a Yaris on the lot that they needed to move. So I went and I took a test drive with the Toyota Yaris. And honestly, at that point in time, I really didn't like it. I'm going from a Camry to the very, very entry level of the Toyota family, which is at that point the Toyota Yaris, a little four-door car. And I'm kind of tall, so I didn't even feel completely comfortable in that car. It wasn't that great. However, it worked. So we got back to the dealership after that test drive. I didn't like it. It was loud. It was a little bumpy, but it was a car. And we started negotiating again on that deal. And this is another part where I made another mistake. I did not really negotiate. Why? Because I didn't have the income. And I knew in the back of my mind that I don't have the income to get a good deal. But I still was sitting there at the dealership trying to get a car. And they knew it. They knew I was in a place where I was desperate. And when we went out to value my trade-in, they knew that that vehicle didn't start. So I had no leverage with these people. So basically, to cut a long story short, I ended up not only getting a car that I didn't want, but I also ended up getting a terrible deal because I went by myself. I financed that car at an 18% interest rate. And let me tell you, even though they dropped the price for me from like $14,000 to $11,800, and it was a certified car, which I found to be a lot of baloney because I still had to pay for the warranty, which I didn't even try to negotiate the price down of the warranty or say I don't want the warranty. And then there was another fee that I should not have paid for. It was some bogus fee for, I believe it's nitric oxide that not nitric oxide, nitrogen filled tires. And I didn't try to negotiate that either. I just made mistake after mistake after mistake. Why? Because I went by myself. Now, that was my mistake. I got a terrible deal. And when I looked at the contract, basically, when I was done paying off the car because of all the fees and everything I had to pay, On top of it, taxes, the warranty, etc., and adding on gap insurance, which at that point I really had to, and only having a $1,000 down payment. At the end of the loan, if I stayed in that loan, I would have paid about $22,000 for a car that was sold to me for $11,800. So basically, I made a you heard me, a $10,000 mistake. And yes, the dealership sold me an $11,800 car, a $12,000 car for $22,000. Now, I'm sharing this story with you all simply because this happens all the time. And someone out there needs to hear this story. And someone needs to know that you can make it through it. You don't have to stick with that deal. You're not stuck with that deal. And what happened after that was my sister, and I'm so happy about it. She was upset that I went to the dealership, rightfully, right? She was upset that I went to the dealership and I didn't let her know. And I ended up with this little car and I had a stupid high interest rate. She's like, see, this is what happens when you don't tell anybody anything. And of course, me being the young adult that I was, and I didn't want any help, didn't want anyone to tell me anything. I'm like, well, it's done. And, I already did it. She's like, well, you need to go to a credit union and see if you can get this car refinanced. And I didn't tell her I was actually going to listen to her, but I actually did. But I didn't refinance it until 6 months later because my credit score dropped significantly because they submitted my credit was pulled by so many banks. It went from, I think at the point it was like 700. And I didn't have much of a credit history. I may have had just about over a year and a few months because I had just recently gotten a credit card at that point. And it was like, I have to wait. My credit score dropped to like 630 or something along those lines. But 6 months later, I went to my credit union, joined my credit union, and my income had increased because I graduated school, was able to get a better job. It wasn't an awesome job, but I was making more money than the $9 per hour, and I was working a full 40-hour work week. And the credit union, they approved me, and I got the lowest interest rate at that point, which was in the 2% range. So it was a huge, huge, huge mistake, but I'm so happy and I'm so thankful that I made that mistake. And I can speak to you all freely because this is something that is going to live with me forever. And now when I do purchase cars, because I don't have the vehicle anymore, I know how to negotiate, especially since they did all the research. I know where I stand with my income, my credit, and my credit history and everything. I will never sign a bad deal again. But if you're in that situation, note that you do have the option to refinance. If you're making those payments on time, and make those payments on time every single month while you are in that terrible deal, then if you do have the cash reserve, because you will have to have the cash reserve. When I refinanced 6 months later, I was upside down about $1,300, and I had to come up with that money in order to refinance my car. And I'm just so thankful, very thankful that I did have that money, and I wrote the check and we refinanced it. And I was no longer paying 18% on my loan. I was now paying around 2%, which was a significant savings of over $7,000 on that deal for me. My payments went all the way down. It was awesome. So I just wanted to share this with you all that it's okay to make mistakes. And the most important thing is, first of all, you have to be able to identify that it was a mistake and not be ashamed to identify that it was a mistake. And then take the course of action that you can take to be able to rectify and correct that mistake. And sometimes, you know what? You may just have to suffer through it. If I didn't have the $1,300 to do it, I would have just had to suffer through it. And I was making more money at that point, so I was definitely able to afford my payment. My payments were under $300, almost $300, for stretched out for 72 months. But again, I was very thankful I was able to shorten my loan down to 5 years to get 6 months later. So 5 years at a much lower rate. It was just over $200 for those 5 years. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I will try to do more videos like this. I do have another video in mind right now that I can share with a big mistake that I made more recently. And I can't wait to share on that. And this one is definitely embarrassing, but I do talk about it and I let people know, like, do not do this because I did it and it did not work for me. And it may not work for you either. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you liked this video, go ahead and hit that like button and definitely drop a comment down below. Let me know what was your biggest financial mistake that you made in your 20s and how you were able to overcome that mistake. If you stay with me throughout this whole video, thank you so much. You are awesome. But thanks, guys. See you next time. Peace.